combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live, and we have another Jimmy Rants episode all ready to go for you here today. If you're brand new to Jimmy Rants, go to JimmyRants.com, and you can see all of the details about what we do. But here's how it works, you guys. We start off on Instagram. We do an Instagram Live, which I'm doing right now with all those beautiful people down there who are following me on this Instagram Live. Then it's available for 24 hours on YouTube or on Instagram Live. Sorry, I swallowed trying to talk at the same time. Not recommended. It's available 24 hours on Instagram. Then it pops over to YouTube, where we have them housed under a Jimmy Rants category there. And then we also have a brand new Jimmy Rants podcast that you can access wherever you listen to podcasts. JimmyRants.com has all the full details about where you can access this show. So thank you so much for engaging in the content here today. And today's Jimmy Rants, you guys, is one that I've been wanting to talk about, because we're seeing more and more out there that there are people who are saying, oh, well, the only culprit in your weight and your health that you need to worry about is sugar. And so it's sugar that's obesogenic. It's sugar that's causing disruptions in your health. So therefore, if we simply eliminate refined sugar, then all of your health woes go away. And so I want to have a new spin on this topic, because I don't think enough people talk about this. We need to start looking at and treating all carbs just like we do sugar. Because at the end of the day, every single carbohydrate, whether it's a sugar-based carb, a grain-based carb, a starchy carb, all these carbohydrates, when they go into your body, every single carbohydrate is metabolized as glucose. Okay? So glucose is the sugar that's in your body. When you test your blood sugar, you're testing for blood glucose. So why do we pretend like the only thing that affects your weight and health is just sugar? Why don't we look at carbohydrates in the exact same way that we look at sugar? And so when you look at a food label, for example, let's say you buy something at the store and you look at it and it says 4 grams of sugar. You think, okay, that's a really low sugar item. But then you look at the total carbohydrates and it's 28 grams of total carbohydrates. Is that still low sugar? I would argue no. And here's why. So when you look at a label, for example, and you see 28 grams of total carbohydrate, which you have to count total carbs. We've talked about that one before. Look at the 28 grams of total carbohydrate. What I want you to do from now on is anytime you see that total carbohydrate number, I want you to divide it by 4. So 28 divided by 4 is what? It's 7. Guess what the 7 number is? That's the number of teaspoons of sugar equivalency that is in that serving of whatever it is that had 28 grams of carbs in it. So 28 divided by 4 gives you 7 teaspoons of sugar, okay? A Coca-Cola, for example, a can of Coca-Cola is 45 grams of total carbohydrate, and it is almost all sugar. So you divide that one by 4, and you're over 11 teaspoons of sugar. And there's people that will argue, well, I don't eat anything sweet on the tongue, so I don't have any sugar in my diet. And yet you ask them about what foods they eat. Oh, I have pasta and potatoes and rice. And okay, well, you've got to take the total carbohydrate and then you have to divide it by 4, and that's the amount of sugar equivalent that you are eating. So if we start looking at and treating all carbs like sugar, don't you think that's going to change our behavior about how we consume them? Because there's a lot of people that start eating healthier. They start eating perhaps on a ketogenic diet, and they're not taking into account that all carbs turn to sugar in the body. So if all carbs turn to sugar in the body and all the ramifications that come from that, shouldn't we be treating them and acting like they're all sugar? Because that's exactly what is happening. And so I'm seeing an interesting trend that people are going keto, and what they've done is they've cut out sugar and sweet carbs, but they've forgotten about the rest. So I want you to know it's going to have an impact. So the argument in this one, though, some people will come back at me. They'll say, well, what about fiber? Isn't fiber good as a carbohydrate? Isn't fiber something that you can subtract from your total carbs because it really doesn't get metabolized by the body in the same way as refined flour and refined sugar? And those are all great points. But what I would say to that is it's still a carb. It's still metabolized. It's metabolized slower, but it's still metabolized, which is why I'm a big fan of testing total carbohydrates, because then you don't have to question, oh my gosh, is this impacting me or is it not impacting me? It is impacting you, albeit slower, but it's still impacting. And so if you count total carbohydrates, then you don't play these little games that people like to play when they go keto. Well, I can have 25 grams of net carbs, and so it gives me more wiggle room to have more carbs than I really need, but I'm going to tell myself net carbs are, what I need to do. But if you start looking at and treating all carbs like sugar, it's a game changer, guys. Because then you become hyper aware of how those carbs that you do eat impact you. And yes, even vegetable carbs qualify in this statement that I'm making. They turn to glucose in the body. Okay? That's why a minimal carb diet, that's why a ketogenic diet is so very low in carbohydrate by definition. You're not generally getting more than about 5 to 10% of your calories coming from carbohydrate sources. And that's by design, because all carbs basically turn to sugar in the body. So if you learn nothing else from this Jimmy Rants than this, remember this: total carbohydrates divided by 4 is the number of teaspoons of sugar that are in your body. And you want to know how many teaspoons of sugar are in your body right now? Take a guess. What do you think? Would you believe, you guys? The answer is 1. 1 teaspoon of sugar floating around in your body right now. That's of a healthy person. 1 teaspoon of sugar is equivalent to 100 milligrams per deciliter on your blood sugar. And for my international friends, that's 5.0 millimoles per liter. 1, that's it. And so when you flood your body with multiplicities of 1, like that 28 gram of carb thing I talked about earlier, that's 7 teaspoons of sugar you're flooding your body with, 7 times the amount of sugar it needs. 1 can of Coca-Cola, over 11 times the amount of sugar that is in your body as a healthy person. Do you want that? Is that good? That's one of the reasons why carbohydrate restriction is so powerful, you guys. You're allowing your body to recognize for perhaps the first time what normality is supposed to feel like in your blood sugar. And if your blood sugar is normalized, then your insulin comes down. If your insulin is normalized, then all of the hormones that it's the master hormone, all the other hormones fall into line as well. Inflammation markers lower. Your body's like, whew, dodged a bullet there. So we need to start looking at and treating all carbs like sugar. And the sooner we do that, the sooner that we understand the why of that, is the sooner we can get healthy in our weight, in our health, and every single health marker that you could possibly run, because they all get better when you treat all carbs as sugar. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for being here. Ashton says, I'm learning to be more mindful of labels. I've been stung by sneaky sugars and creepy carbs. Yes, they do put dubious ingredients in products, and they try to hide it, like actual sugar. They're hiding now because they don't want you to know it's sugar. So they'll put like evaporated cane juice. That's called sugar. So, but they put evaporated cane juice. That's one game they play. There's a bunch of names for sugar. In general, if it has OSE on the end, it tends to be a sugar. But even like sneaky little ingredients, and sometimes they'll even say, well, no added sugars. Well, no added sugars does not mean no sugar. And then again, it goes back to my point in this Jimmy Rants. No added sugar doesn't take into account that the carbohydrates that are in that product will also turn to sugar in the body. So if it has carbs in it, it's got the ability, once it is metabolized, to become sugar in the body. Definitely will make me be more aware of what I'm eating. For sure, Ashton, it does. Hello, Olga, and hello, everybody that watched me on Keto. Christina had my wife Christine and I talking about our new book. So thank you guys for watching. Amy Marm Brewster, I'm so tired of people saying they can continue to eat those foods like it's no big deal. I'm tired of the net versus total carb argument. A carb is a carb, no matter what. And that's something I'm trying to get people to understand better. And especially for those of you who you know that you know that you know you're insulin resistant. Because if you're insulin resistant, here's what happens. When you eat a slice of bread, which is not recommended, by the way, but let's say you eat the equivalent of carbohydrates of a slice of bread, your body as an insulin resistant person will respond as if you ate the entire loaf of bread. We wrote about this in The Keto Cure, my co-author on that book, Dr. Adam Nally. He sees this in patient after patient after patient, that the abnormal response to even a so-called normal level of carbohydrates, it's so pronounced because of the metabolic damage that's there. And it underscores this importance of treating and looking at all carbs just like you would sugar. It's so critical for that insulin resistant population, which is more and more people these days, which is why you'll hear me talking to that group, because some people will be like, well, I can have all the carbs and I do just fine. Well, good. You're insulin sensitive. You do well. But there's a whole segment of the population that is not getting this good information that says it's probably not a good idea to be loading your body with so many carbohydrates. Hello, Lauren. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We're going to do a whole rant tomorrow, you guys, with my friend Keto Coach Lauren. So stay tuned for that. She's going to be on camera with me tomorrow afternoon. New Bill Janet, glad I caught this live. I needed a rant, or needed this rant. You're welcome. Hello, Kimberly. Thanks for being here. The blue shirt looks good on you. Yeah, blue's my favorite color. I love blue. Amazing info, things we just don't know. Bulletin 2018, you're welcome. Just ordered a probiotic and read the label. It has rice, maltodextrin. K-Neil. K-Neil 409, thank you for sharing that. Yes, even things that you wouldn't think would have sneaky carbs in them, they sneak carbs in them. Part of the reason for that is things like rice maltodextrin is dirt cheap. So they'll use it as a filler. They'll use it as some way to bulk up whatever it is that they're selling to you. New Bill Janet says, I'm insulin resistant. Yeah, a lot of us are. In fact, in our book, The Keto Cure, Dr. Nally and I estimate that it's probably upwards of 70% of the population. So in other words, 7 out of 10 of you watching this right now, you have some level, some form of insulin resistance. It could be very minor for a lot of you. It could be very major for a good segment of you as well. So you kind of have to figure out where you are, get that book, The Keto Cure, because we do talk about the signs of insulin resistance. Maybe I'll do a whole Jimmy Rants all on that as well. But something as simple as, do you have skin tags on your body? If you do, you're insulin resistant. Do you have blood sugar levels that are consistently above 110 milligrams per deciliter? That's a big sign. Do you have consistent insulin levels that remain above and remain in the double digits or higher? That's insulin resistance. So there's so many signs and symptoms of insulin resistance that if you have those things, then what I'm ranting about in here on this needing to start looking at and treating all carbs like sugar, it's that much more beneficial to you guys than probably anybody else watching this right now. Barnyard Coffee, can you heal insulin resistance or is it permanent damage? That's a whole nother rant. I have some thoughts about that, but I will save it for another rant. And yeah, the skin tags thing is true. Code Keto for Life. Definitely pick up The Keto Cure. We gave a whole lot of other signs and symptoms that you can look for. If you eat good and the next day your insulin is 120, is that insulin resistance? New Bill Janet. Well, it's not that simple. What is the 120? Is that in a fasted state? Is that in the morning? Is that after eating? So there's a lot of moving parts. I need to do a whole insulin resistance 101 Jimmy Rants. So that's coming soon, you guys. So thank you for that. Thank you for the suggestions. All right. So what you need to know, we need to start looking at and treating all carbs just like you would look at sugar. Because when they're metabolized, that's exactly what happens to the carbohydrates that you consume. This doesn't mean you need to fear carbs, but it does mean you need to be aware of what they're doing in your body when they're metabolized. All right, guys, that's it for this Jimmy Rants. Thank you so much for watching. JimmyRants.com is the website where you can access links to my Instagram channel with all these beautiful people down here I've been interacting with in the comments. You can be one of those as well. I come on generally twice a day doing these rants so that you guys can interact with me about these things. Then it's up for 24 hours on replay on Instagram. Then we house them over on YouTube. We have over 50 videos now for you guys to access on YouTube. And then the all-new Jimmy Rants podcast, we now have 10 episodes up and ready for you guys to go listen to some of the highlights of the best Jimmy Rants. And it's got nice production value and a nice little music bed all throughout. Go support it. JimmyRants.com is the website. Been fascinating testing my blood stats after eating various nutritional products. Even supposedly identical type alternative sweeteners have a vastly different impact to your body. Low carb, high fat fella, you are nailing it. That's so critical. Testing your blood sugar is a good way to kind of see where you stand. If you don't think all carbs turn to sugar in the body, eat you a sweet potato and then test your blood sugar at 1 hour and 2 hour at baseline, and then 1 hour and 2 hour. That will tell the tale. When Christine, my wife, did this, she tested at baseline, it was 90. At 1 hour postprandial, she was at 197. 197. And then at 2 hours, it was only down in the 170s. And then it stayed elevated, and it still wasn't all the way back down 6 hours later. So that's one example. All right, guys, that's it. I am out of here. We'll talk to you again real soon. Bye.